Hello everyone, I am Palpatine001 aka Senate, and it's been a while, but we're back here with Cities Skylines 2 and Waikato. One of the two new cities, well actually now, one of the two cities we'll be focusing on in 2026, the other one being Neo Monaco Rangers. This map is a custom map based on Elizabeth County in the state of Virginia, United States. Okay, so it's been 4 weeks since we last did CS2, and the reason is perfectly legit. In fact, the two highlights will point out the reason why in a minute, and this is not on Bad Peanut. It was the game mechanics, and most likely another mod breaking it at the time. But in the interlude interim over the last 4 weeks, I've had the 2 weeks of the school holidays over the Anzac block, so that means, yep, I'm tied up with the kids as I should be, being family and all. The second 2 weeks, was the game being a little bit picky, and that's known with CS1 and CS2 and any other game, no matter the genre, heavily modded. When it comes into heavily modded 4X games, like Stellaris, are prone to it as well after there's been updates floating around the system. Speaking of which, there is an update to this game which I will cover quickly too, because it does actually affect the game in a very good way, and maybe not such a good way, but for me, used to loading times in that, meh. I didn't have the 23-minute saga, which I honestly thought was 23 hours until I realised what the clock was formatted to, with City Planner Plays in his lot, but that will be probably because it's tied to mods and assets. It's happened before with CS2, it happened in CS1, it's happened with Stellaris, where they've done something behind the hood, it's upset the modding system, and your game now, you can basically write a novel or two during the duration that your game takes to load, no matter how powerful your rig is. But with CS2, what had happened is we were getting, and this was actually coming up across the community, and this is also the power of the community, we were getting crash to desktop straight away loading our games. Now you can see the two assets being highlighted. It's the large bus station by Bad Peanut and the small city bus station by Paddy. Again, this is not on Bad Peanut. This is was something else going on behind the game. What had happened once some of the community went scratching around is basically what this is telling me is that, and what this little beautiful mod here does, broken node thing, is that a node was broken somewhere, and it was causing the game to cascade constantly to the point it just crashes out from all of the cascades. Now it's still telling me it's picking this problem up at the moment, but the game is no longer crashing to desktop. I say there's been 2 mods along the way that have been updated since, and then we've also had the update to the game, which has also probably helped. What will happen is I will do this game. I do today's, which is 2.x. We're doing finishing off the infrastructure before we go to 3.0, which is the zoning. Now, unfortunately, because I had to use safe mode, which always starts the simulator, some of the Chicago zoning, which is a custom zone, has popped up. But that's okay. It doesn't detract from doing the rest of the infrastructures as we go along. But yeah, once we had figured it out, the 2 assets were taken out, as well as some vanilla parking lots and a bus lane road. Game loaded fine. So far I've been able to put the bus lane assets of the buses, Bad Peanuts assets back in here, and so far the game's running fine. If it does CTD again or crash the desktop again, unfortunately I'll just have to take them back out. That Bad Peanut know we've got a problem, that it's only these 2 assets causing the problem at the moment, as well as the solar roads, which I think it has been lodged with Iceflake, and Paradox are going to deal with that one. But we'll just see how it goes. And the whole reason why we were getting the broken node was Bad Peanuts use the bus lane roads. So if you go to the game, they are actually a dedicated set of roads, and you can't build on them. So I say there's been a bit of forced to make it happen, rather than what you would normally do is you just use the roads and just put the bus lane overlay over the top. But bit of luck. Yeah, I don't think the game should fault now this is going, because these assets are wonderful. Reason for that being is the vanilla assets you've got entrance, exit, and you've got pedestrians crossing and backs up the system. One way in, one way out. Sorry, pedestrians come out separately away from the road, which works absolutely wonders. Now, you can probably hear the game. I certainly can. Now, I don't know if you can. Haha. Yes, you can. Get some lights onto these. So which means you can control the pedestrian crossing over more effectively. So that will, especially with once your city's gear, because that was a pet peeve. That means, and this one should already have its lights on it, can control the pedestrians in and out, which means the buses move more freely. And technically, it should be the same for another one is the trams. Oh, this is a pedestrian road, so it's not going to show up. Yep, for the trams as well. If this was attached to a road. Didn't do it with the other station assets. Oh. And that would be auto-save because it's been turned back on. It's actually technically not needed. It's a pedestrian path. So yeah, that's where... so that's what happened. That's what's caused the delays. And then I've just had other real-life things. Just pile up, and this is actually the first moment I've actually had in the 4 weeks to actually get back into it. So, where we're at. So this is 2 point... Actually, that's a good point. Where are we at? Suppose I should go back to my notes. Actually, I think this is 2.2? If not, it will be in the title. So I wouldn't exactly... I'm not going to exactly bust a nut over it. Actually, yes I am. I'm going to quickly look it up. What's the date today? The 5th. Am I going to pen? Yep. Welcome to behind the scenes recording. Let's just take a quick pop out to this. Let's see where we're up to. This is the great thing about keeping a blog is you know where you are. It is 2.2. Yeah. Okay, so we are up to part 2.2. Woohoo! That is a great thing. So, with that in mind, and with that little preamble of where we've been for the past 5 plus the CTDs, actually I'm not going to go over the update. Other players have covered it. You can go and see it on the Paradox Forum site. It's just cleaning some things up, including taxis and office demand, which means 2 mods now for the way, which they naturally have. It's always great when modding gets incorporated into the vanilla game, allowing the mod to drop away as the vanilla game gets reinforced. That being the outside taxi connection remover, yay, because that always backs up your traffic, especially on the highways. And office demand fix, which has been fixed. Commercial has not, but I think I've got mods and other techniques in play to allow that to play out. So with that in mind, let's get into it. With basically, welcome to Cities Skylines, welcome to the Waikato. You've just listened to me ramble on about things leading up to it, but we are on part 2.2 of Waikato, Waikato City, covering the rest of the infrastructure. So through part 1 and part 2, leading up to 2.2, we have been basically doing some planning on where everything's going. Including some founding industry, residential and commercial. So we've got rural going with some industry. There's ore over here. We've got some forestry. We've got oil over here. They'll pop up as the game gets underway. In fact, if anything, have I built? Yeah, the railway line's here, and I believe that was a big, massive ore. Yeah, big ore. So I might get some, get this highway up and actually get some ore going in here too. So I'll cover that in 2.x as well today. But yeah, so we've got the foundational stuff in, and as I have explained previously, we usually go left to right. So we've got the roads, we've got the power, we've got the water, and now we're going to start, and we do have some public transport that allows for intercity to get help get your first citizens in. So you'll always jump over that one. But typically when you're building you go basically from left to right, and then and with a small jump over to the left to zoning and maybe some signature buildings to get your foundational off the ground. Otherwise, yeah, it's always across like that. And then you jump over to these ones. And then your next part of the city gets underway. Woohoo. So we've done, as I said, we've done the roads. Oh, yeah, you also jump ahead to get your rail. We've done the power. We've done the water. So now we're going to go through 2.2, get the rest of the infrastructure off the deck before we go into part 3, the zones, and then release the simulator to get the city going once and for all. So with that in mind, let's start moving across. Oh, before we do just the layouts, so we've got, I'll actually pop into this quickly, because it's the best way to do it. I need the Chicago one, if it shows up. Yep. Oh, we've got the San Fran ones too now added. Woohoo! I love adding residential assets. I really, really do. So we've got the Chicago stuff in, so you'll see that pop up. We'll get some more. We'll get some San Fran down, and we'll also get some Australia. I love mixing there. Some districts are tied to a specific architecture or urban design style, I should say. But most times I will usually intermix it because that's how a true city is. It is what's called a heterogeneous mess. Or basically, it's basically everything banged together in the blender, and boom, out it comes in its spatial form, which influences our behavior, and then our behavior influences the spatial form as it continues to evolve. Welcome to Spatial Planning 101. So we've got the foundation here, the city, so the district names give it away a bit, the city centre. Now I think I have taken off the ultra low emissions trading. I have, but one of the updates is cycling was nerfed from 80% to 20%. If you activate the initiative, it can take it up to 50%. So it allows not quite to go full Amsterdam, but doing the hamster dance. But it allows you to get pretty close again. So I might check the ultra low transmission one again. Just to see where that is, just to help things along. Usually I go through this. This should not alter. These are global settings. Yeah. Okay. So with that in mind, let's get the infrastructure going, bearing in mind we're in here. And we're also in here. So because I'm using Chicago and we'll be using North American assets with a blend of a bit of Australian, I will use, when I go from left to right across the infrastructure classes, try and focus in on the American assets unless size is a problem, and then I'll cut over to the European or the Asian assets, which can, in some cases, shrink down. Other times they're 10 times as large as like, yep. But then when you're dealing with the population densities, you can see why. So in planning, especially in New Zealand, we your infrastructure types are typically classed into around 7 different types. You've got to remember that we operate on a central government, local government model. We don't have local, state, and federal governments, so the overlap is quite clear cut. So the overlap you might get, say, in Australia or the United States or Canada, doesn't quite exist here in New Zealand, because we're not federalized and we don't have states. So the infrastructure types you get, and this is now me rattling them off, is you've got physical, which is basically grey infrastructure or waters. So that's fresh water, sewage, wastewater, and stormwater. Now the game doesn't do stormwater. There is a mod in CS1 that allows it. You used to play with it. Merry havoc that used to cause with the game, but they also added the realism that with it. So hats off to our stormwater engineers. I do not envy your task. So you've got that. So that's the first one. The next one is transport. Now that is both roading, rail, and all things public transport. Well, as it says here, land, sea, and air. And that also, so that is, that also includes your transit, your freight, and also your active modes, which is walking and cycling. Now, for the sake of the game, it actually has cycling rightfully pops up in here, as well as pedestrians, but at the same time, it also shows up in here as well when you want to do separate pathways. When you want to do separate pathways as well. So that shows up under the landscaping tool of all places. So you've got transport. The next one is green infrastructure. Now, green infrastructure comes in two forms, and the game lumps crosses over between green and civic, green and social. But basically, your green infrastructure, for the sake of all arguments, is parks and recreation, but is not plazas. Plazas comes under social. That's because green infrastructure, it's green, grass, trees, and all that. So whereas things like plaza, the hard services, they come under social or even civic infrastructure, whichever way, community infrastructure, whichever way you want to spin that one. But yeah, you've got your green infrastructure. Now, the thing is with green infrastructure, not only does it cover parks, it also covers natural defences when regarding stormwater, aka flooding, river flooding, and even coastal inundation. So it straddles across. So you've got green infrastructure. Next is your civic infrastructure, which is pretty straightforward. Health and death, education, fire, police. Is your typical forms and administration. Those are your typical forms of civic infrastructure. Pretty straightforward. You've got community infrastructure, which is plazas. Will often sit in this. Public-owned community halls can sit in this. By a loose definition, your big stadiums sit in this as well. Your big sports stuff. So I'm not talking. Typically, your big sports fields and that come out of green and go into community. So they fall into that aspect. Social infrastructure, the most common one is that privately run community halls, places of worship, fall into that box. Event centres can fall into that box as well. So again, there's always a bit of overlap. Then you've got energy, and you've got energy, which is pretty much straightforward power. Energy and resource recovery, which is basically your waste management. And then you've got your communications, which is the game pretty much puts it out there. Remember, some of it with energy, resource recovery, and communications, the private sector can easily jump into that as well. It's not all pure public. So those are your infrastructure. Those are your infrastructure types in a nutshell. So as I said, we are going to go across and start putting them in respectively, bearing in mind of where everything is going to go. And you've also got to remind the city's starting out, so I have not laid out, say, all the local stuff yet, because that will often come along when I do zoning at the exact same time. So if you're seeing gaps everywhere, because if I pop into the zoning, that doesn't all line up to save itself. You will see that you'll see me do things like local roads and now off the collector and arterial roads when I start doing basically start doing the zoning, which would be typical in a development. That's when if development's done properly, which it certainly isn't in New Zealand, because we keep fobbing everything off to the private sector where we shouldn't. Basically, the public sector does all the big stuff, so that would be all your big trunk infrastructure. And then when it comes down to when you start dropping down into the things like the zones to get the residential, commercial, industrial, and office, or if I do it the other way around, residential, industry, commercial, office, or RECO, then the private sector does provide those local infrastructure bits to join into the main urban and public network. So you'll still see me when I lay the zones jump across to some of the other forms of infrastructure. But at the moment, we're still doing the big public stuff. At the moment. So let's go in. We are in the residential side. As I said, it's a North American theme at the moment. So we'll try and use the North American styled assets. If I can't, we'll drop down due to say size or whatever. We'll drop down to the European. If that doesn't work, we'll drop down to the Asian assets as we go through. All right, let's start with healthcare and deaf care. So we'll go healthcare and because it's Chicago, let's go to the northeast. Medical clinic, 256. Okay, so and also work out where your public transport is. So you want to keep it in close proximity as you can to your public transport. Okay, so one here, that should be enough. Yes, you do need it in your industrial areas. Okay, don't try and skimp out from your industrial areas. One here. Now I think auto districting is on. Yes, it is. And then we will pop in the big one. Actually, no, we won't yet because I'm not doing anything on that side. But when I do jump the bridge to start the city centre, we will find a big, massive one, so northeast, and that's the big one here. And he's a bit of a sodder. Sweet. Okay, so we'll just jump back over, and we will just get the extension wings put in now. Just all second done. Okay, so that's that done. We now jump into deaf care. Now, deaf care is all fun and games until somebody gets hurt and dies. This is where we do jump over to... nope, I've actually got... Okay, so we can jump over cemetery. I do have I will put in the crematorium as well. So we do have a small cemetery available. Hip hip hooray. So we're going to put him in somewhere. Congratulations, there is the... Oh, right opposite a big car park too. So that works, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so that's the small crematorium. Great thing is with the updates and content packs out recently is that we have the small stuff to get your stuff off the ground, or tighter spaces even. So that's great. And I can add an additional burial plot. Where's that? Yep, so that should just blend in very nicely. And then I also have the... Oh, isn't that cute? Where you can be interred. Now I will jump over to the other side. And the reason for that is to remind me to get the big central one down. So you... with the Netherlands one, you can put down... Oh, I've also got to put in a crematorium. So... And this allows you to build a huge big complex. Okay, so I will take them off and say you can build a huge big central cemetery site for your city. Now at the moment I'm going to take him offline because I don't need him, but that tells me when I get there what to do. Now I will add a crematorium. I don't think I've got a small one for it, do I? No, so you have to add him in. Yeah. It's on the main road, so... So that's the... Phew, what a term to use. When that's allowed for extra hearses. Yeah. Okay, And that just means that doesn't get overwhelmed, but they should have stopped there for it. So that's that done. Oh, and one other. It is a China... no. I think that came under police. I think that came under the police. Yeah, I think it is under welfare. That comes under administration. I'll show you what I mean when I get over it. Garbage. Now, I think I've already set that up. Or have I not? I mightn't have actually done it yet. Let's go for a look-sees. Have I done it or have I not? That's the power plant and that's the wastewater. I mightn't have done it yet. Okay, so the answer is no, I have not done it. Now I think that's got a power connection out. And it's automatically connected into the system. So that's the small one. Now at the same time I will chuck in the Japanese recycling center. I'm not adding any of these big ones yet. Huh. Well, that's a new one. Not that I'm particularly complaining. Also, that just gives that a bit of a hand, but the one I'm looking for is don't need that. Because that's bugged. I think that's only sending out 3 vehicles, which is like, well, that's a waste of time. Small recycling center, metal recycling center. Does that one as the city grows up. The main ones will be down here. This is all set up for it, so that becomes a big resource collection site, resource recovery site. Oh, and just for I will. Quite big actually, I don't need it to be that soppingly large. These ones can usually blend in quite well anywhere. Oh, because that's buried because of this thing. Oops. Now this one, because of its size, you want to ooh. That's not good. Nope, there it is. I do want to stick to its operating districts, so it doesn't get overwhelmed, because there's only a single truck. It's just there just to assist. Now, I did see a new asset crop up. It's just like, oh, this is cute. It's like, oh, got to put that in. And we will. We're going to put that in right here. Oh, no, isn't that cute? Huh. Okay, those are something to do with green. Citywide collection can increase capacity and deploy more vehicles. Nice, it's basically a transfer station. Oh, okay, and you can attach more to it. Ah, I was wondering if it was going to do that. Okay. Okay, is that having to be put... Oh, okay, so that's going to be put straight roadside. Oh, it would make sense. Oh. Something new every day. Schooling! Right. Northeast. Elementary school. One should be enough for the moment. In fact, this is now where you see me start putting in, and I've also got the high school. Yeah, okay. Is that going to fit? Haha, I thought that was going to happen. Right, let's just move him out of the road. I was wondering if that was going to happen. So, what I will do is, as I said, this is where the local roads start kicking back in. Okay, and then for just as a reminder, okay, while I'm quickly here, oh, those are so cute. Oh, those are cute. I don't think it's upgradable. Doesn't matter. And I suppose I better throw one in. Actually, no, I will throw in a big one. So I just had to do that quickly. So now we can jump over, back to the northeast. So school. That's thing, and then high school. Whoops, no. Northeast. Okay. There we go, so that stacks that up now. I am likely also, so this is now me shooting outside the box. Now this is where I'm also likely to bring something a little bit closer. Oh shush. And that aspect in. Okay, this is where now you've got to start paying attention to. Oh, okay, so I need to move him. Actually, no, we might leave that alone for the moment. I might. Yeah, shush. So that should be enough to cover it. If I need to bring in another school, that will be built on the other side. The other way of doing it is also, as I said, you go outside the asset box. And you also make sure it's just operating in this area. Okay, I will also, so we don't have it. Do I have it in Southwestern? No. Okay, so we go to, nope. Don't need to go to any of those yet. So we need to jump to modern architecture, and jump over to, we don't need the universities yet, jump over to the modern community college. Now the thing is, where is the public transport system? There. So it's going to be, oh no, that would be a good spot to wait, but I think it's also got some very large. So what I need is pop out and work out where this public transport system is currently. There is a very good place to actually probably slap it. Slap the roof, everyone. Now it does that's the only catch, is it has the big bloody sports field attached, which ironically can go on the other side. So it can go across a few roads there. So it's not be all end all, so you can definitely slap him in. And then you've as I said, don't need the university yet. So okay, so we've gone across. Now you would have so that's that. Fire service northeast. Now you got to be careful with this one. These get pretty bloody, because we're pushing into the American stuff. This gets pretty bloomin' big. So you just got to be careful. See, now this is where it does not work. Now this one will work. This one is a central will work in this instance. Okay, but it's not going to work. So that's the helipad. Now it's not going to work over here and over here. So this is where you now need to start. We've also got, oh, that's the police. Disaster control. So that's changeable. We don't have that. So this is where you need to now start jumping your assets a little bit. So in this case, what often complements the northeast is the southwest. So these will be more than sufficient to deal with any problems relating to fire. So you can slap one in there. You can put a big one in here for this one. Okay, so I just need to move him. Because that acts as that one, and then we jump over to the southwest, and because of what it's serving in that, so that services that. So that's, oh, and I'll need to put a fire service over here. So we go back over to the northeast inset, and we put in, we put him in. Now that's on a thing, so I will. Yeah, that just services that, and because of the nuker. Because you don't want that exactly catching fire. I can also you go no. I will push on this particular unit. Ooh, that's right in my ear. Whew. Cooling towers for you. So that's that covered. Police. We are now with the police. Okay, again, parts of it work, parts of it do not. So, Now, because of the helicopter, this is where you have to be a little bit creative. So, 1, 2, and then I'll come back across to these, and then you just back them up with the small one, which is all you need over here. Nope, we actually jump back to southwest, take northeast off. Okay, so that's what we need here, and then I can just get okay, so we just quickly extend those out. Now the police also has what's called the administration, which I'll jump into in a second. Police helicopter, that's why I couldn't put it next to the fire building. Okay, so that covers that. I don't need to worry about down here. Okay, now also with the police we have administration. Okay, and we've also got one of the skyscraper assets for the first time. So basically I don't need any of that yet, because the only thing I need is to add the kindergarten, which would always be a good thing. And maybe a maybe a welfare office, or just to move things along. So that covers that. Don't need to add town halls in there. So that's now covering that. So we've just done administration. Okay, we don't need to, those are some of the bigger stuff that comes along later. Now, public transport. Now, I actually, I'm going to do that off screen because that takes a while, but that's also done after the zoning's done. So we do, or it's actually done in parallel with, it's actually done after the zone. So I actually do jump over, and then these are actually done in parallel. So we will come back to the bus system that later. That said, we can add okay, it's not going to give me grief. How many buses are in there? 10. Okay, and then probably want the large one added. Okay. And then I've got some mods to boost that along. Oops. Okay. Okay, so yeah, do jump over that. Next stage is parks, which is always fun and games. Yes, I correct the pun. Okay, so we now jump over to our parks, and we've got all our range from parks and recreation, large parks, large sports parks, tourist attractions, and landmarks, for which there is only one. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is put in the depot. Without the depot, you are not going anywhere. Well, your parks are going to look pretty bloody shit, but yeah. And I will slap one in over here. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Parks depots, you've always got to smack in your parks depots, or your parks just basically don't function. Unless you want them looking like absolute utter crap. Oh. Well, that's a new one. Right, parks. Frustrating at the best of times, but they're needed. Okay. And this is also could be a bit of a game of scattergun as well. And placing in the dog parks. If I don't place in the dog parks, I'm going to be in a huge amount of trouble with the dog owners of the city. So it's a case of I better place them in, or I'm going to be a large spot of bother. Okay, so I'm going to actually jump to the large ones. Excuse me. The reason for that is I'm looking actually for a set of I've just got to remember where it is. If it's actually in this one or another one. Or if it's actually back in... No, I think it is. Oh, you've got to do the petting zoo, they say, or they'll absolutely lose their mind in peanuts. We kind of have that now, can we? Okay. Jump back to one more playground because we can and we shall. It's a case of where do I go and stick it? Okay, now we will Color Plaza. Yeah, we'll add one of those in. Oh, I might actually add more than one, might I? Okay, probably, to be all honest, an actual park itself. Just saying. Okay, small sports parks, so that is basically your gym. For those who like to work out for their routine. We'll chuck in the skate park. I usually have them next to schools. If I can remember where I put it. Here. Actually, might leave that out for the... Might just leave it out for the moment. Large sports parks won't need to go anywhere near that. Oh, can shove in a community pool. But this is my favorite one. Big basketball center. Notice that I'll come back off and I actually take it off. Close to public transport. Okay. Jump back over. I will provide just something to get that off the ground. Is that actually going to let me... Already in a nutshell, it's not going to let me do that because it's all... You know what? To hell, and let them redo it again. Okay, so that's the parks. Comms. Now I do need the post-sorting collection facility. Which gets interesting on where the heck do you slap that first off? Theoretically would actually be here. Whoops. Okay, which then leaves me putting in I don't need big post offices at the moment. Small ones are more than enough for the job. Actually, no, I will put in a standard. Or not. Actually, no, we got... Okay, and that does leave me just needing to put in a small one, say over here. Now, can you extend him? Yeah, you can. And maybe another small one. Yes, they do need them out. Oop, they do need them out here too. With now... I will put it in on the central city side because it just basically what it does do is it covers it for the moment. Oh, is that because I've got a transformer in there? Yeah. There you go. That covers that. And then the last bit I need to do is communications. So he does that one. We put in a large tower there. And we put in... What's that? It's the welfare office. One there. Oh, okay. That means I can actually shove it in a smaller one. Down here and just... Okay. Now, as I said earlier, some parts of the infrastructure, when I do the zoning, some other parts of the infrastructure I jump back to. So parks and transit will be, and the bikeways and that will be done as I do the zone because it's you're feeding into the local stuff. But the big public stuff is now basically sitting in there. And so that allows us to move into part 3 with doing the zoning and then some more supporting infrastructure to go around that. What I will also keep an eye on with this is, yeah, because of the way the Chicago zoning is set, you can't really do it, but I can add a few little bit more bits and bobs of infrastructure in, like those, because these form very good connectors. Across. So if I was to jump back in here, go into paths, perfect. So it says, yeah, as the city develops, I will add in some more parks to go along here as the city develops, because some things you are a little bit reactive in, because you need to see what is going to happen first. Like, for example, that's a bike path, so putting in some actual bloody bike parking would be, it does break up the Chicago one a bit. But it also, yeah, it just allows bicycle parks. Bicycle was the Queen song used to say. That's not a unique, so I could just put him in somewhere just for the giggles. There you go. And yeah, we're basically up to the zoning now, because I should have already checked all the power and water. That's ready to go. So yeah, that's where we will leave it with 2.2, the infrastructure. So basically, we're now doing the extra zonings across here to get some more residential and commercial down, which won't take long, and then some supporting infrastructure like transit, more bike lanes, because I know where things are going, and any other supporting infrastructure and parks, although they get added bit by bit as you do, as your residential fills out, because you can see where the gaps are going to be. But that's where we will leave it for now. I am Palpatine001, aka the Senate. This has been Cities Skylines 2 after a bit of a break. With 2.2, the rest of the infrastructure, we will be back with 3.0 and those zones, which then allows me to let the simulator rip, although you can see some of it already because of me having to fix issues before. And to, as always, planning, building, and experiencing.